You're listening to Aimee Keeps It Creepy, the podcast where I share my obsession with true crime and the paranormal with you. I'm your host, Aimee Brooks. An evil entity that can't stop playing with marbles. Two families that traded haunted houses. A poltergeist in a council flat. This is 30 East Drive, home to the infamous Black Monk of Pontefract, said to be the most violent and relentless poltergeist in the UK. Happy Halloween, creepsters. To celebrate the creepiest of seasons, October is full of especially spooky and nightmarish episodes to get you into the Halloween spirit and possibly keep you awake at night. If you're up for even more terrifying fun, check out the Aimee Keeps It Creepy Patreon page for my pajama party ghost hunt of my own house. Ooh. It's pretty scary. There's 2 ghosts living with me. In addition to awesome bonus content and member-only bonus podcast episodes, Patreon supporters also get commercial-free early access to Aimee Keeps It Creepy each week. There's also a tier that gets monthly candles from a candle story, and even an exclusive tier that gets a monthly Zoom call with me to discuss all things creepy. Check out our website, creepypodcast.com, or on Instagram at creepypodcast for all the latest show news and swag. I am so excited about our listener giveaway this month. During the month of October, I'm giving away 13 Halloween-themed luxury artisan candles from acandlestory.com. I am not lying when I say they are absolute pumpkin deliciousness and will have your whole place smelling like fall. To enter, just subscribe and leave us a review. Make sure to screenshot your review and email it to me at info@creepypodcast.com. As always, Patreon supporters are automatically entered for a chance to win one of these creepy candles, courtesy of A Candle Story. Good luck. 30 East Drive in Pontefract, West Yorkshire is said to have some of the most intense poltergeist activity in the UK. The entity has been dubbed Mr. Nobody by the local press, or simply Fred by the family it terrorized. Bill Bungay, a film producer who made a movie about the house called When the Lights Went Out, ended up buying the property after they wrapped filming, which I'm sure resulted in the coolest red carpet movie premiere ever. Today, it is run as a guest house for anyone crazy enough to spend the night. Thank you for joining us today on Aimee Keeps It Creepy, Bill.
Hey, Aimee. How you doing?
So good. Bill, I've heard that you have never spent the night at 30 East Drive and have zero intention of doing so.
Yeah, this is absolutely true, Aimee. I've got absolutely no intention of spending a night in that place. It scares me. It scares me.
Oh my God, it scares me too. Okay, on your website, it states that 30 East Drive is not a traditional guest house, hotel, B&B, or party venue, and the owner recommends that you do not visit. It goes on to say that as upon booking, you agree to relinquish all legal rights to any claim whatsoever pertaining to your visit. Everyone enters 30 East Drive entirely at their own risk. Okay, who the heck stays there?
Oh, you'll be amazed at how much interest there is in 30 East Drive. It's become a very legendary haunted house, not just on the UK circuit, but beyond now. You know, there's many reasons for that, but the main reason is that the house is still active after 60 years. The first events were witnessed a good 60 years ago, and it was only when I subsequently ended up buying the property, as you mentioned, after I'd made the movie about the house, that I discovered that the house was actually, you know, genuinely active. And I must caveat that statement by saying that I was, you know, a skeptic, a pretty hardened skeptic, and I'd made the movie about the house based on one of the most brilliant storylines that I'd ever heard, which is Poltergeist moves into council house.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah, it's a council house being a government subsidized property. So they're tiny little houses. And I just love the idea of this kind of, you know, this very dark kind of kicking, screaming, evil entity moving into this tiny little house, as opposed to a big castle or a mansion house, which is where you would normally associate such kind of entities. And so I made the movie as a skeptic based on that excellent storyline. So it wasn't until I bought the house and started to witness things for myself.
What did you see that made you a believer?
Well, I mean, it was a gradual awakening, if I'm honest. It started, the very first things that I experienced were quite, I could have put them down to, technical faults. I had an iPhone that went from a 75% charge to 0% in a beat when I was taking a photo. The interesting thing about that was that the photo that was being taken wasn't on my phone because the phone died. And it suddenly appeared on my phone about 2 weeks later, just on the home screen. It was the most extraordinary thing I'd ever seen. I thought, wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
But the first time that something, tangible happened to me was it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd just sent a film crew back to London, and I was doing the honours of tidying up, making the property secure before I went back to London. And I was outside picking up litter. And the interesting thing about the house is that you're on high alerts. You're very conscious of everything that you do. So I have no, loss of memory with regards to every single little detail of that night. And I went to close these wrought iron gates at the back of the house. And I put the plunger into the little hole. And I thought, well, I'm going back to London. There's no lock. So I took a concrete block. It was a heavy concrete block. And I pushed it against the gates, and the gate was really secure. It would have taken a very determined individual to open the gate with a concrete block in the way. And then I went to the back door. There was only one door open. I called for a couple of colleagues. They came running down the stairs. And as they exited the house, I looked towards the back gate, and it was open 90 degrees. It was open 90 degrees. And the concrete block, it had just been pushed to one side. I didn't hear it. There was no one out. It was 2 o'clock in the morning.
And it took a force to do that. That's not easy to do. That's powerful.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It would have taken some proper force I was thinking that when I was putting the concrete block in place, but it was going to take, someone very determined to push the concrete block to one side. And it just happened in the blink of an eye without me hearing it. And it was a completely quiet night. There was no breeze. The surface is flat, so it didn't slip away. There was none of that. And I thought, that's weird. That is really weird.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's really, really weird. And subsequently, I've experienced so many things. I mean, it was stories from visitors that started to pique my interest. I thought, they can't be making... I mean, you think, they must be making it up. I mean, surely they must be making this up because this stuff doesn't exist. It isn't real. But then it started to occur. I'm a creative. I used to be in advertising as a movie maker. I think very creatively. And so I kind of pride myself on being able to tell a yarn. I pride myself on being able to create stories that, I believe are kind of, sort of believable. But I also know how difficult it is to convince someone of something that isn't true. There are certain nuances, certain things that we say, and certain kind of language structure that comes into play. And you can kind of guess that you're being told a yarn, you're being told a story. And these stories that were coming in were so abstract and so elaborate. I was thinking that I would struggle to come up with some of the sort of complexities of some of the themes that were occurring. They were just too creative.
Oh, I have some here. And then we'll get to what is causing this. Okay.
Yeah.
On the website, it states there's 288 recent experiences. Here are some of my favorites. 1, an old-fashioned clear child's button came down from the bathroom ceiling and landed in the bath.
Yeah.
Oh my God. A group spent the night in Philip's room. In the middle of the night, a loud bang was heard and a yellow ball of fire shot across the room and disappeared. Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff with marbles. A marble was thrown like a bullet from the ceiling. Another guest remarked that a marble was ejected from his chest. Another witnessed a marble thrown through a wall. Oh my God, there's more. A guest was pushed down the stairs. She described the sensation as having the carpet pulled from under her feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
A jug filled itself up with water. Oh, and then I'm coming up to my favorite. Hold on, here's what. A domino materialized in midair by the kitchen table and was thrown at a guest's head.
Yeah.
A penny dropped from nowhere, rolling into the middle of the front room. And here's my favorite. a single mattress completely disappeared.
Yeah. We still don't know what happened to that.
What do you even say to that?
Oh, I know.
I'm sorry, you can't have your deposit back.
Yeah, exactly. We still don't know what happened to them.
So what is causing all of these disturbances, Bill?
Well, I mean, listen, there's lots of theories, so the jury is still very much out. There are those that believe the entity is the spirit of a very bad monk. There used to be a monastery on that site. So Pontefract is a very historical part of the UK. So much history, and in fact, there was even battles on the site where the house is.
Oh wow!
So Civil War battles. So it's the scene of lots of death,
lots of bloodshed, Because it's on top of a hill, there's another theory that suggests that it may well have been the execution place as well, because it would have been visible, but away from the town centre. Oh, that's a great place to build a council flat. Oh my gosh. On the execution site.
Well, precisely. And in fact, I've ended up writing a book about the house. And in fact, I was the one that had the domino thrown at my head. So that was the first time that I had ever seen an object materialize out of thin air. And it came at me with such velocity that I was just completely blown away. My response to seeing the domino appear was just, I mean, I can't tell you what I said because there were some expletives involved, but it was amazing.
Yeah, no kidding. I would have been terrified.
Yeah, oh yeah. It was both terrifying and exhilarating in the same breath. And I then spent the next 2 hours being bombarded by small objects, marbles and plastic balls and all sorts of strange things. And that became the catalyst for me writing The Black Monk of Pontefract. Now, the reason why I mention that is because in writing the book, I obviously spent more time researching the area. And that's when I discovered that when they built the estate that 30 East Drive is housed on, 30 East Drive and the neighbouring house, 79 Chequerfield, is like a semi-detached house. They were the last properties to be built in the entire estate. Now, you could argue that there was just a simple sequential, 1 to 30 and then 1 to 79. But actually, what we have learned is that there's a well underneath the house, big medieval well. Now, the significance of that could be, and so the legend goes, that the Black Monk was responsible for killing young girls. He was a very bad man, and would have, a theory is that he disposed of them quickly down the well.
Down the well, underneath your property.
Underneath the property.
My God.
Now, if you do that, you're going to poison the well, and so it becomes unusable. So, one of the theories is that he himself suffered a similar ignominious fate and was also disposed of down the well because the well was poisoned. And then they capped the well. Now, this has been a theory that's been floating around for some time. And in our research, we discovered that there was actually a sequential line of wells effectively across the top of this hill. So you've got one well, and it's marked on the maps, and then there's like a 50-meter-ish gap. And then there's another well, and there's a 50-meter-ish gap. And then there's no well, and then there's a 50-meter-ish gap. And then there's another well. So there's a line of wells feeding what I believe was an orchard that belonged to the monastery some years ago. And on the gap is where East Drive is. So it's interesting to think that when they built the house, they discovered that there was actually a capped cavity that they needed to get their heads around. So they waited and saved the most difficult building to last. But also the fact that there is a sequential line of wells with one missing pretty much where 30 East Drive is suggests that there might have been something that happened to that well, which lends credence to the idea that it was perhaps poisoned and then capped and forgotten.
Fascinating.
So I don't know if you've seen the movie The Circle.
Yeah, creepy movie. Mm-hmm.
Creepy movie, and something comes out of the well. And
yeah. Wells are creepy in nature.
Yeah.
Oh, all those girls under the house, buried all this time, and then the monk is down with them. No wonder there's so much activity there. Okay, tell me about the family that had lived there in, I believe, the 1960s and 70s.
So the Pritchard family, as you can imagine, local legends as a result of the things that they witnessed. Two kids probably, in fact, they moved into the house when the children were quite young. They did a house swap with a family called the Farrers.
Oh, the Pharaohs were smart. They're like, okay, yeah, you can have this house. We'll just take the other one.
Well, precisely.
Oh, that's underhanded.
Yes, exactly. And I met Bill Farrer. He's in his late 90s. He's an ex-Normandy veteran. He's a war hero, and he's every bit that when you meet him. He's an incredible man. And he hadn't been back to the house since he swapped with the Pritchards back in the late 50s. And the reason why he didn't go back to the house is because it had so many sort of bad and stroke abstract memories for him. His wife changed completely when she was in that house, and she never told him why. But all sorts of random things started happening, physical things like, cups of tea would go missing. Just you think, oh, yeah, everyone mislays a cup of tea, so don't think much of that.
Yeah, but you find it later. Oh, my God.
Yeah, you should find it later. And things would go missing in the house. But worryingly, they had their first child when they moved into that property. And within a short space of time, the child started getting scratches on its face.
Oh.
And, like any parent, you're concerned. So they put little cotton gloves on the child. There's no way that could scratch the child's face. But the scratches continued. And the hood of the pram received cuts.
Oh.
And all sorts of very strange things were happening to that family. So when Bill's wife, whose name escapes me, unfortunately, met Jean Pritchard at a shopping area just up the road from the house, and expressed, they asked each other how their new houses were, and they both expressed, discontentment. And so they said, why don't we do a swap? So it was at that point that the Pritchards did the swap with the Farrers. And we've also subsequently discovered that one of the reasons that the Pritchards wanted to do a swap with the Farrers for their property is because they may have had the ghost of a girl in their house as well. So the whole area certainly seems to have a sort of paranormally active reputation or resonance. So at that point, the Pritchards took over, and the kids, I presume they were experiencing little things, but they just put it down to being, forgetfulness and the like. But then the kids hit puberty, which seems to be the catalyst for poltergeist activity. And then everything kicked off. I mean, big time. They had some of the most fabulous poltergeist activity that there's ever been in that house. So just a few little things that resulted in them appearing in the local newspaper, and a brilliant British author called Colin Wilson writing about them, which was the thing that brought 30 Strive to the fore ultimately. But the very first thing that happened was when Philip and his grandmother were alone. It was August. It was a nice sunny day. Interesting about the house is activity happens all the time. It doesn't have to be at night with the lights out. And sure enough, this was sunny. And all of a sudden, Philip noticed that there was a layer of dust falling about a meter below the ceiling. So
that's not natural.
There was not natural. There was a gap of nothing, and then there was dust falling. So below head height.
Oh, freaky.
So they're stood, and the dust is falling below their heads. And then pools of water started appearing on the liner. And they subsequently called a plumber, and they lifted the liner, and of course there was nothing. And I believe that day they had
it's like the water from the well. It's like they were communicating.
Well, it's an interesting... I mean, we know that poltergeists can apport objects. They can transport objects, and I believe that it's a dimensional event that's going on. So an object goes from our dimension via a fourth dimension, and then is ejected back into our dimension via their dimension. So objects can just move in the blink of an eye. You never see objects disappear, but we see them appear. And so water would have been,
like the domino almost hitting your head.
Like the domino, yes, exactly,
right.
Exactly right. And it just appeared,
Just things appear just from the ceiling. It's amazing.
Yes, yeah. it's fascinating, and old things, timeless as well. There's no time involved, I think, with poltergeists. It's as if they can defy time, and which if we had the time, we could discuss theories as to how that could happen. But a large bunch of medieval keys fell from the chimney breast onto Jean as she
that's pretty cool.
It was very cool. Yeah, that's interesting. You see, it's not always scary. A lot of it's just really cool.
You're like, bring more stuff that I could put in a museum because this is cool. I want the medieval stuff hitting my head.
Yeah, exactly. But bear in mind this house is brand new, so there's no way that could have accidentally ended up, unless someone was playing a proper prank. You always have to make an allowance for that. But it's doubtful that a builder would go and collect a big bunch of medieval keys and for a laugh put them in the chimney breast, on the chance that they'll fall at the right time. I just think, there's a limit to kind of criticizing.
To comedy. There's a limit to comedy.
To comedy, yeah. And in fact, we firmly advise and actually ban people from 30 Strive if they cheat in the house. We have no cheating. If you cheat, you're out. That's it, full stop.
But it doesn't sound like you need to cheat.
No,
it sounds like there's so much going on that you can have a paranormal experience. If that's really your cup of tea, if you really want that, you should be staying in this house.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, because it's not Disney World, you can go there and you can get nothing. We call it feast or famine. So people will, we had a lovely couple that traveled from Belgium, bless them, and they had a fallow night. There was nothing. It was just, there was nothing there. And yet someone will, travel 10 miles in their car and they'll get stuff thrown at them. It's not a Disney feature. There's nothing rigged. It is just what it is, and extraordinary things happen.
If you like creepy things, please give us 5 stars and subscribe to Aimee Keeps It Creepy on Apple Podcasts or wherever you podcast, so you can obsess with me every week about true crime and the paranormal. If you subscribe and leave us a review, make sure to screenshot your review and email it to me at info@creepypodcast.com for your chance to win a weekly candle giveaway from our sponsor at candlestory.com. A Candle Story makes amazing luxury candles that smell absolutely delicious. Currently, they are featuring a limited edition Halloween collection. My favorite being the Sexy Witch candle that smells like a bourbon spiked pumpkin latte. Yum! Burn one today and keep it creepy.
I'll just tell you one other story that happened to Jean when she was there. She used to have the Women's Institute come round and, for comfort, but also, they would, in their own kind of naive way, try and exorcise the demon. And they would sing, Christian songs and they would, just try and maintain Jean's spirits and try and drive away whatever was troubling the family. And on this one occasion, Jean had prepared cucumber sandwiches, English tradition, and the WI was sat in the front room drinking their tea. And all of a sudden, the lights went out. So I'm imagining it was in the winter for the lights to go out in the evening. And there was a rush of wind around the front room. And when the lights came on, all the sandwiches had disappeared. And, of course, the women set about trying to find the sandwiches. And they found one sandwich behind the TV, and it had a massive bite out of it.
Oh!
Isn't that great?
That's a great story. Oh, he was hungry.
It's really great. They had all of this stuff happen, but more spectacular still. If you want to try and, question and kind of debate your way out of that, is the same group, the same night, as I understand it.
When they're doing the exorcism, right?
This
is the Exorcist Day.
Straight after the event, they're panicked because this is unusual. This isn't supposed to be happening. So they all burst into Christian song, and they start singing, "Onward, Christian soldiers, marching out to war." And on that, these 2 gloved hands but amusingly wearing female gloves, because it was only the Women Institute in there, and there was 2 pairs of female gloved hands that appeared from behind the door and started conducting them. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Started conducting them, and I go, yes, that.
And so, did they continue, or what do you do when you're being conducted by an unknown, unseen thing? Oh,
yeah. I mean, what do you do? And you know, one can only imagine. But the thing that strikes me about that and many other events is it's as playful as it is scary.
Interesting.
Which makes me wonder about the nature of the thing, because it can be very violent. I mean, we've had people carried out of that house. We've had people not quite hospitalized, but we have had people giving up ghost hunting once and for all, proper tough, you know, paranormal investigators just giving up once and for all. So, you know, we've had people that have been scratched, pushed, shoved down the stairs, slapped. We've had, you know, some things that you would consider to be, you know, pretty violent. But at the other extreme, you've got this sort of playful, it's almost showing off. And which makes me...
But it could be the girls. It could be the girls there. There could be more than one entity. I mean, obviously, the Black Monk is a creepy, evil dude. But the other spirits could be nicer, could be playful.
Well, that's interesting you should mention that, because we have it on good authority. By that, I mean several investigators have gone into the house and have said, what's with the girl? And they call her either Emma or Emily. And they think that she's in the house, trapped in a similar fashion. Of course, if you want to believe the legend of the Black Monk killing the girls, then, you know, being thrown down the well, you know, is it one of those girls? And in fact, there's a very frightening image that was captured by a couple of investigators that's in the book, The Black Monk of Pontefract, that's really worth seeing, that shows, you know, the very distinct appearance of a young girl. She looks like she's wearing a once sort of expensive dress, potentially. It sort of has that sort of, it's got a little fringe around the neck, and it looks, you know, looks like it used to be a nice dress. But her hair and her face is disfigured, and it even looks like her mouth has been cut. So there's some very dark stuff in association with, but the girl has been not only witnessed, she's very playful. She plays with the toys. She regularly moves the ball around. I've even witnessed a balloon moving from one room to the next in the blink of an eye. So she's very playful, but she's also been photographed. So it's interesting that you should mention the girl, because it could well be that she is being the playful one and he is being the evil one, and hence this sort of contrast in events. Fascinating.
There's no doubt that you have poltergeist activity, which tends to be focused on one person. Now, when the Pritchard family was there, who was the centered person?
Well, everyone was involved in some way. In fact, it made some very noticeable appearances to Jean herself. I mean, Jean actually physically saw what she believed to be a monk at the sink, which is where I was when I had the domino thrown at me. She was stood at the sink, and she felt something stood behind her. She turned, and there was a faceless black monk, as she described it, stood there.
Oh, I would never do dishes again.
Oh, yeah, God.
That's a deal breaker.
I know. Whenever I'm stood at, it's extraordinary. Whenever I'm stood at that sink, and I've been to the house a few times, never spent the night there, but I have been obviously a few times. I'm very cautious about doing the washing up, and I've been in the house on my own and heard the footsteps across the ceiling, down the stairs, down the corridor, and then tapping in the cupboard right next to me. And I just went, no, not doing this. So the sink seems to be pretty active.
I don't know how you can hire a cleaner. I can just imagine that interview. Well, actually, there's a black monk here that's living here. There's poltergeist activity. Yeah, but don't mind it.
Yeah, we have a tenant. So yes, everyone has seen something. Joe was locked in the coal house and attacked in the coal house. He came out a changed man, and they say that was the thing that broke him. Philip's room was thrown out of the top window into the back garden, all of his effects.
Whoa.
That happened 2 or 3 times. And but the main focus, or the most dramatic event, happened to Diane Pritchard, the young girl. And we think she was probably around about...
The girl, get it? Girl.
13, yes, exactly. She was a young girl. And if you know the legend, then
that's the profile.
That's the profile, right? And he, showed a lot of interest in Diane, but on the most dramatic occasion, and this was witnessed. All these things were witnessed. She was stood at the bottom of the stairs. Jean was there, and there was a friend of the family there. And Diane's hair suddenly stood up on end, and she was dragged up the stairs into her room. We actually show that in When the Lights Went Out on Vimeo.
Oh, I have to see your movie. That sounds like a horrifyingly scary scene.
It is.
Like being a teenager is hard enough, and then you're living in this house, and you're being terrorized.
Oh gosh!
Oh, poor girl.
that would
poor girl.
Yeah, poor girl, and she obviously suffered a great deal after that event. So the whole family did. What they witnessed as an outsider is extraordinary, and reading and hearing about the things that they witnessed is just so fascinating. But to have lived it is just it's inexplicable. You can't explain what's happening if you're in that position without people thinking that you're some sort of loon, a nut job. And yet the whole family, and also the criticism of, well, you just wanted to be in the newspaper, and you wanted to make some money. All of that, honestly, there's no way that it was worth anything to the family to make up a story like that. What they lived, they genuinely lived, and now as a kind of the inadvertent owner of 30 East Drive, I've now witnessed things that are, perhaps not as extraordinary, but through my lens, having never experienced anything like this before, unbelievable, and proof of the fact that they genuinely lived something extraordinary.
I can't wait to read your book, Black Monk of Pontefract. So in researching the book, was there anything that surprised you?
Well, I think if there was anything, bear in mind that I've owned the house now for, when did I buy the house? For 8 years now. So I've lived with the house and heard all the stories, and I'm at the cross. I'm the meeting point for everything. So everyone sends me their pictures, sends me their stories, and so I've seen and read a lot about the house. So I think perhaps the thing that surprised me the most about the stories that were coming in, some of the events were almost. I tell you what it is. It's how lucid and how responsive it can be when it wants to be. It can actually be conversant, which throws me, because this is not a kind of magnetic tape theory. This is not.
That shows intelligence. This is an intelligent being.
Exactly.
You're having a conversation with it.
Exactly. It's an intelligent being or beings. Whatever in that house communicates. And one of the last chapters in the book concentrates on these guests that have what we call a tap conversation, a knocking conversation with the entity. So you say 1 knock for yes, 2 knocks for no, etc. And they conversed with it for an entire evening, and to the point where they even had a break, and it became impatient and started rapping regularly as if to express its impatience. So
it wanted to talk. It's boring in the afterlife.
If it has anything to do with an afterlife at all, Aimee, this is the point. What could possibly exist that has an ability to communicate, to watch us, to listen to us, and to respond to us, to understand us? So presumably it speaks English in the case of the Black Monk of Pontefract, and to be engaged enough to maintain a conversation for an entire evening. That's not, so the most fascinating thing of all is if I had any sense of what a poltergeist might have been prior to owning the house. It certainly wasn't anything conversant. I just thought it was, if it was anything, it was, I don't know, some evil that could just, go boo and scratch you and throw things at you, but not conversation.
Now, this thing has power, and it sounds like it's evolved over time.
Well, that's an interesting theory. And of course, we have lots and lots and lots of guests visit the house now. So it could well be that whatever's in the house is actually starting to engage because of the amount of visitors trying to communicate with it. It could well be that it has developed in its responsiveness. It could well be. I wouldn't discount it. So, yes.
Oh, interesting investment you've made there, Bill. I don't know. I mean, I have the dream about, owning an Airbnb as a side business, a side gig, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Haunted Airbnb. Ooh, crazy.
Well, my idea was just to do up the house and sell it after my premiere. The two-man premiere of my movie in that house, I thought was one of the best ideas I'd ever had.
So cool.
But sadly, it fell on deaf ears, and I thought I'd invested in this house. But I thought, I didn't really believe in such things. So I'm just going to do the house up and sell it. I mean, I only bought it because it's cheap as well. It was, obviously it's been on the market for years. Gene had moved out.
Yeah, you think? All the locals are like, ooh, that's the Poltergeist house. And now with full disclosure,
Somebody has finally bought it.
There's no way. You're like listing all the things that's happened in the house.
Funnily enough, when I bought it, they didn't disclose anything about the house.
Ooh, that's naughty.
I obviously knew, but they didn't tell me, so I could have had them on that. But no, I ended up buying it just for my premiere. And then, it was only because people started to ask me about the house that I sort of let them in, and, they gave me a few quid to pay the council tax, that I started to learn that it wasn't quite what I thought it was. And since then, it's been fascinating. And I am now, as I'm sure this interview will kind of fully testify, a believer in such things, because I was a skeptic before. But when you get bombarded by stuff, when you're
hit by the domino falling from your ceiling, yeah,
when
that's an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, exactly. And then the footsteps and the bumps, and there was a growl there the last time I was there, and all this.
Oh, see, that sounds demonic to me. I don't like the growl. Ugh, no.
The growl is very worrying, and I think from what I've gathered, what I've read, when anyone hears the growl, they all leave the house. So, perhaps that is something demonic. But if it's demonic, why would I have a chat? Why would I have a conversation with us? Wouldn't it just want to, I don't know, send us to hell? But
I don't know what the intentions of demons, except that they try to mess with people, and, they like to hurt people.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say that they smell sulfur in the house and the growling. Yeah, there's something evil lurking there.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you on that, Bill. Well, I will never be visiting your haunted house. Well, I'm a scaredy cat myself.
That's a shame, Aimee. I was about to offer you a free ride. You can bring your crew over.
You're such a good friend.
Bring your crew over, and you can come and spend the night there. Bring a couple of your listeners with you, and come and film.
Well, people would love that.
But in the meantime, get the Black Monk of Pontefract from Amazon.com. And have a read. We've also got it's a very up to date format, by the way. We've added QR codes, so it's as far as we can tell, it's the only print book where you can watch video in real time. So it's a multimedia print book. Buy the print copy, not the Kindle. The print's much better, and so you can use your phone to scan the QR codes. Your smartphone. You need a smartphone or a tablet. And you can see the videos, you can see the emails, you can see the pictures. So it's wonderfully immersive in that respect. You see all the pictures that we've discussed. And, you can learn about my co-author, Richard Estep, who spent a week there. His view was to try and catch me out, and he ended up being so immersed by the house. That's why we ended up agreeing to co-write this book together. So, yep, put that on your list, Aimee.
Definitely a must read, everybody. Check out Black Monk of Pontefract.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Bill. It was truly terrifying. Do you have a creepy true crime or paranormal story that you would like to share on Aimee Keeps It Creepy? I know you do. Please email a brief description of your story to info@creepypodcast.com. I can't wait to get creeped out. Thank you for listening.
Toxic content.